KWT slaying.
Salama family, Salama, how y'all doing today? Hope y'all blessed. So we're going to be discussing a little, I guess it's going to be somewhat controversial. These types of topics are always controversial. Some people are going to say the Holy Land is in the Americas. I don't even entertain that thought. And so if you're that person who believes that this is our homeland in America, you might as well leave now. Because we don't believe it. There's no logical reasoning for it. That's just straight up deception. So what I want to do is I need you all to understand, if you can, how I arrive to my conclusions. Okay, how I go from A to B. And, I'm a logical person. Everything has to make sense in some form, categorized or whatever, right? Now, do I have all the answers? No. Do I have some suppositions? Yes. Do I work through the idea of a preponderance of the evidence? Yes. And the other thing is, I want you all to understand the idea that I keep mentioning of how I approach things from the idea of a picture puzzle. Okay, so the idea of a picture puzzle, what does that mean? That means we take the pieces of information we do have, right? Like, let's say scripture, all right? Putting together what we have from the scriptures, painting it based upon what we find in the world and seeing where they fit, where things make sense, where they line up. So I came to these conclusions after years of research. So, one of the things I want to do right now is give a shout out to Truth Unveiled, who has done extensive research on the subject. In the beginning, I was in disagreement with Truth. But after spending a lot of time going down my own path, it led me back to what Truth Unveiled has found. So, I want to give him a shout out because he did a good job. He did a real good job on that. And, at the time, I had issues that I had to work through. I had questions I had to work through myself. Okay. So if you're going to come to your own conclusions on the matter, there's a lot of things you have to work through. One of the things being what we call Canaan has some errors. Now we were taught the inerrant word of God. Now, the word that we have in context, right? In terms of the message is true and inerrant. I have no doubt about that because those things line up. But when it comes to the translations, sometimes there's errors. Now, I do have an opinion on some malicious intent, right? In what we call canon in some places, like, the scripture warns us that God is going to deal with those who add to and take from his word. Why would they add to and take from his word? If we had the warning of those who add to, they're going to add to the plagues written in the book, and those who take from, God's going to take their name out of the book of life. And the reason why you're going to see why I have these caveats now about things in what we call the Masoretic text. Okay, so one of the examples I'm gonna give, and they don't talk about this too much, is in Mark 16, right? There are verses that do not exist in the older texts, like the P52 manuscripts. Okay, so there's some verses in Mark 16 that exist in the Masoretic that doesn't exist in the older P52. Why is that? Why is that? Okay, there's some other things too I'm not going to go into, because this isn't about teaching about the text and where they come from and all these type of things and the validity of them. I just want you to understand how I reach my conclusions. So also you have some names that are used in the Bible that seem to have been purposefully mistranslated or mistransliterated. Okay, because and let me say this before I continue. I put a link in the description of this video for you to go see Truth Unveiled's video, and it's called The Four Rivers of Eden. Okay, so you'll see, like, for instance, there was the name translated as Assyria. When you look at it, it is Ashur or Ashura, right? Which, has no transliterated value at all. I mean, so you have these type of things that go on with the translations and transliterations, and I've come to the conclusion that some of these things are on purpose. Okay, so why? So another example, other than the Mark 16, is why use words like Gentile and Greek for the same Greek word for Gentile in the same chapter or in other chapters of the New Testament. For example, Strong's numbers G1672 is used for both the word Greek in Romans 1:14 and for the word Gentile, Romans 2:10. So why isn't this word translated as Gentile as well in Romans 10:12? You see, they do these type of things. Now, some people will make the excuse, well, you had different people at different times translating the Bible, and some of them made mistakes. Well, maybe that's true. But at the same time, if you saw in the previous chapters that same word being translated as Gentile, why would you translate it as Greek? If you're working on the Romans chapter 10 manuscript, okay, why would you make that mistake? I'm just asking. See, there's these little issues that come up. Okay, so another point is there aren't enough Canaanite cities to fit modern Israeli territory. So if you look at what we call the modern land of Israel, even if you spread out to Arabia, spread out to Jordan and stuff like they wanted us to believe, there's still not enough room for all the Canaanite cities, right? For the Hittites, the Perizzites, and all these different people, right, to live, in that land. Because remember, that's the land of Canaan, supposedly. And so as we go on, I'm going to show you why I came to the conclusion I came to. I'm not saying I am correct. I mean, they did a very good job of hiding our land, but it makes sense. And I'm going to tell you why. As I mentioned, you have to be like Matlock. You have to be an investigator. You have to get, your spy tools and start looking at everything and doing your research and questioning stuff and comparing stuff and say, why did they do this? Why did they say that? Why, you know what I'm saying? How does this fit? Why doesn't this fit? This don't make sense, right? You have to do those things. So also the next thing I looked at is, why are there so many biblical names in Africa? Why? Some people are going to say, well, because the colonizers came and they named them with the biblical names. No. I mean, this is all over the continent. Why do they have all these biblical names all over the African continent? All of them wasn't, written by the colonizers. Now, remember, they didn't colonize till the late 1800s. Now, some of the maps, and I'll get to it. I'm not going to go through all the stuff that Truth went through. Y'all need to go watch his stuff. Okay, but all of the maps, or some of the maps, have biblical names in Africa, right? But they are way before the 1800s. Okay, so we got to look at this. So you have to build the picture puzzle, as I said, like I mentioned in past shows. Even though Jerusalem was supposed to be desolate, was all of the promised land supposed to be desolate? So I had this question to you, family. We know that Jerusalem would be uninhabited, that Jerusalem would be desolate. But did the Bible ever state that all of Jerusalem would be desolate? We got to ask ourselves these questions. Did the Bible say all of the promised land would be desolate? So we're given territories, okay, to the northern tribe. No, let me rephrase that, family. Were the territories given to the northern tribe supposed to be desolate as well? Yes or no? So all of that area in the Middle East to me looks like desert, even though there's trees and some rivers and stuff like that. But does it look like the promised land to you? Those are the type of questions you have to ask, and we're going to go through that. And like I said, I'm not going to go through all the studies that Truth did, because he went through a lot of pieces and grabbed a lot of information, and they're good. And I'm going to say this. If you don't spend the time going through the information piece by piece, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. So why doesn't the description of the promised land fit modern Israel? Why is that? We got to ask that. So now, one of the stumbling blocks I had, which is why in the beginning I was in disagreement with Truth, is the location of the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea was a stumbling block for me on where the promised land was. But there's issues there, right? And we're going to get to it. And the other thing is, and as we go on this, you got to keep this in mind. You got to keep this in mind. Why would the 12 tribes leave all of the promised land when Jerusalem was the only city invaded? See, we got to ask ourselves these questions. Okay, now, Jerusalem was invaded and conquered and under the control of Rome. But was all the territory given to the 12 tribes under the command of Rome? No, we don't see that in the scriptures. Neither do we see it in history. Now, let me ask you this. Think about America. America goes into another nation, right? They conquer it. And the way they force migrate or force people to leave is through bombings. So like, for instance, in the Middle East and Syria, they bomb those native people and they force them out and drive them out, and they go into, let's say, Greece, or they cross into Turkey. But yet there's always a good, let's say 1 million people leave, there's still another 1 million that stayed. So you have to ask yourself the question, would our people have left the area of their home? Would they have left the location of the promised land? See, these are the type of questions you have to ask. If you look at war and what's happened over the centuries, most people don't leave their homeland or the areas surrounding their homeland. So I'm going to share some information, and we're going to get into it. And as I mentioned, I've gone through a different path than Truth did. Okay. Truth gave you all the maps, all the information. He put it together. I recommend you go watch his videos. Okay. But I'm going to show you how I reached my conclusion. And this isn't all of it. I cannot cover everything for me to reach my conclusion. And that's why I'm telling you, for you to reach your conclusion, you need to do the same research. You need to do the same research if you're going to reach your conclusion, because, Truth had the information there, but I didn't get it. He had the information there, but because I was going down my own path, it took me a while to come back to get his information and put it together and say, I see what may be happening. So finally, before I get started, I want to say this. So you had, according to Psalms 83, a massive conspiracy of nations against Israel. We know that they wanted to move us far away from our land. Why? So that we will forget who we are, so we won't come back. that the name of Israel will be no more in remembrance. That was the goal. So how come, if that was their goal, why is that place in the Middle East still known and over many centuries been known as our land, which it doesn't even fit the biblical description? See, these are the type of questions we have to ask. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, so let's see. All right, well, let me show this so I can make my point about what we were talking about, and we'll just move on from there. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Okay. So this is where we were talking about the differences of the word, right? Hellene, which is the Greek word for Gentiles, or the word for Greek. If you all could see that, let me know. Okay, look like it's showing up, right? So in John 7:35, it says, then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? Okay, as you can see, that translation is G167 and it's translated as Gentiles, right? Now, if you go down, and we're going to go back down to Romans, and you can see it in other places here as we look. But as we go down, we see in Romans 2:10, G1672, Gentile. Now, in Romans 10:12 is translated as Greek, G1672. See, these are the type of things they do. Now, we can give them the benefit of the doubt and say they made a mistake, okay, or maybe they didn't. I'm just saying there's these type of issues, like, for instance, the whole idea of naming Passover Easter. That was definitely a Catholic influence. And if you go and look at the Council of Nicaea and see where they were deciding whether or not they were going to celebrate Easter or Passover, we know that was a fact. Now, who translated the King James Bible? King James. Now, we can see from the translations of the Bible, especially 1611 King James, there's a huge Catholic influence. Now, whether or not there was any malice, that's the question. That's the question. So I'm gonna share. You know, we just gonna take our time here because I'm gonna show you how I reach my point, my decision. So here is another issue that I have with some of the translations and transliterations. This is dealing with the river Tigris, okay? And the river Tigris, it was pronounced Hiddekel. Okay, Hiddekel means rapid. Okay, one of the rivers of Eden, which coursed east toward Assyria, better known as the Tigris. Now, here it says, probably a foreign origin, the Hiddekel or Tigris. Notice Tigris is in parentheses. If you read the scriptures where it's located, there's two locations, Genesis 2:14, Daniel 10:4, right? Hiddekel. Hiddekel means rapid. Have it in parentheses as the Tigris. Why? Because it never said it was the Tigris. They told us it was the Tigris. These are the type of issues I have. Now, you know, Truth Unveiled makes a good point in the video that I shared with you in the description about the name of Assyria. Go check that out. Check out the video about that because I'm not going to go into it. So my point is that there are issues. Don't think that the King James is perfect. It contains the word of God, but man has touched it. God has gotten his message. He got his word, the truthfulness of his word, you know, the contextual truth of his word there. I don't deny that. But just like we have the word Easter in there, we have to admit that is an issue. That is a problem. Okay, so let's get started. I mean, I guess we already started, but let's continue. All right, so Ezekiel 20, verses 4 through 6. Will you judge them? Will you judge them, son of man? Then confront them with the detestable practices of their ancestors and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. On the day I chose Israel, I swore with uplifted hand to the descendants of Jacob and revealed myself to them in Egypt. With uplifted hand, I said to them, I am the Lord your God. On that day, I swore to them that I would bring them out of Egypt into a land I had searched out for them, a land flowing with milk and honey and the most beautiful of all lands. So here it says that the promised land, the land of milk and honey, is the most beautiful of all the lands. Now remember, Jerusalem is inside of the promised land, but the promised land is a huge territory. Now, some people are going to say, well, the Middle East that we call, the land of Israel and all of this stuff, right? That just happens to be under the curse. Well, if it was under the curse, then they shouldn't be in the land. If it was under the curse, they shouldn't be in the land. So it's desolate, but people living in the land. So also, even if let's assume it's desolate. Can you ever imagine that land being the most beautiful land ever? And look, let me continue with this because we need to know what we're dealing with here. See, we got to ask the right questions. We got to ask the right questions. All right, so let's see. I believe this is it. Okay, yeah. All right, so this is Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 6 through 9. Observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in obedience to him and revering him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with brooks, okay, brooks plural, streams plural, and deep springs gushing out into the valleys and hills. So with deep springs, waterfalls gushing out into the valleys and the hills. That's not that modern territory. A land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil and honey. A land where bread will not be scarce and you will lack nothing. A land where the rocks are iron and you can dig copper out of the hills. Does that sound like the Middle East to you? Anywhere close? Even if you assume that land was to be desolate? Does it look like it ever had deep gushing springs? Does it look like it ever had brooks and streams and all this stuff like it's described? Does it ever look like it was like it's described here? I'm just asking. So we got to ask these questions. Now, it's sort of like when you're going to try someone and you don't have the picture or the witnesses to put him in jail or to convict him. You only have enough information to prove him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. See, this is how we got to approach this thing. Is that the land in the Middle East beyond a reasonable doubt, or is that land in Africa? We got to look at the evidence. Okay, so family, here's some information we're going to share, and we're going to go through a little bit at a time and discuss these things. You can assume it's coincidence all you want, but we're going to go by the preponderance of the evidence. Okay, so in Africa, there's this area called Canaan land. Okay, now this Wikipedia is dealing with the municipality or the local municipality called Canaan land. Okay, located within the Garden Route District municipality in the Western Cape province of South Africa. The municipal area is situated in the western part of the Little Karoo and includes the towns of Ladysmith, Calisthorpe, and Zor. Now, remember, I'm talking about building a case from the preponderance of the evidence. I don't have the photo of the picture that says, here it is. We're building the case from the preponderance of evidence. Okay. So let's continue. And you can go and look at some of this stuff yourself. And you're going to get a lot of this from Truth's videos as well. But, you know, for me, I had to go through a different route, which led me back to where Truth was. You see, because like I said, I had a lot of issues initially because I couldn't answer all my questions. Like, for instance, in Exodus, it talks about how God, you know, how the land of the 12 tribes, how Jacob gave the land to his sons, right? And how Judah's territory was at the beginning of the end of the Dead Sea or the Salt Sea. Okay. So some of those issues right there, when you look at it, it's going to tie you back to what you see in the Middle East. But what you see in the Middle East really is what was in Africa, and they built that according to what we see in the scriptures. And you're going to see why. Okay. Because see, what you have to understand, and what I try to do is show you how I reach my conclusion. You don't have to agree with it. And I really don't care if you believe America is the promised land. I really don't care. Keep it. Okay. But I'm going to show you how I reach my conclusion because it all fits, right? It all fits. It all fits why when you look at the history, you've seen the history of where Judah was located. You see the history where our people were located. You see where the Ashanti, who had the breastplate of the high priest, right? You've seen those teachings. And Ashanti have the, some of the Bantu languages, which are Hebrew. You've seen that. You've seen the studies where some of the scholars say that the Ashanti, have the words like Yahweh, right? You've seen those. You've seen the pictures where they called it the kingdom of Judah. Why was that the kingdom of Judah? Because that's where we're from. Remember they said that God said they divided my land. And we were like in the past, well, how did they divide the land in the Middle East? Not until the fake Jews came. But we know they divided Africa. And the parts of Africa that they divided was the Bantu areas, right? It was the Israelite areas. The Holy Land is in Africa. The Holy Land is in South Africa. Truth is right, in my opinion. I'm not God, okay? Maybe I'm wrong, but he's right. And I'm showing you how I reach my conclusion from the preponderance of the evidence. So you saw Canaan land. You saw Canaan land. Now, I want to skip to here and show you something else, and I'm going to come back to some other stuff I have. Okay, now you see here, everyone knows about Mali, right? Mali, officially the Republic of Mali, is a landlocked country in West Africa. Mali is the 8th largest country in Africa with an area of just over 1,240,000 square kilometers. Okay, now you can read the rest of that. All right, so I want to share another screen. And we're going to come back all the way around. We're going to come all the way around. Okay, so we got Exodus 6:19. The sons of Merari were Mali and Mushi. These were the clans or tribes of Levi according to their records. The Merarite clans, Mali and Mushi, these were the Levite clans, according to their family. So we have another nation named after one of the descendants of Levi. And his name is Mali. We have a nation in Africa named Mali. Oh, but that's coincidence. Okay, well, hold your horses. Hold your horses. We're going to continue. And I'm gonna show you why I put my nail in the coffin and said, okay, I'm done. I think he's right. I think Truth hit the ball out the park. I think he's right. South Africa is where Jerusalem is. South Africa, that whole area is part of where we come from. I'm gonna show you. Okay, so we saw Mali. Just a coincidence, I guess. Just a coincidence that it just happened to be named after one of the descendants of the Israelite tribe. But let's continue. We got more coincidences. 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 21. So Joram went over to Zaire and all the chariots with him. And he rose by night and smote the Edomites, which compassed him about, and the captains of the chariots, and the people fled into their tents. All right. So you saw that we had Mali, which was named after one of the Levitical people, right? Now, we have a country called Zaire, which has been renamed to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. But all my life growing up, it was called Zaire. But it's just a coincidence that there's a biblical location called Zaire, which was an Edomite territory. And we have another location in Africa called Zaire. Why did they have to rename it? I wonder why. Maybe for the reason they renamed a whole bunch of other areas. Okay, let's continue down. We're going to continue down. Trying to show you how I reached my conclusion by the preponderance of the evidence. Okay, so one other thing I want to show you is this. So this is a map in South Africa, and I hope you all can see it well. It's called the Jordan River. So how come they didn't tell us there's another Jordan River? How come they never told us there's a Jordan River in Africa? Which is the real Jordan River? Which is the real Jerusalem? The one in the Middle East or the one here? So just a coincidence. They just named it after biblical rivers and towns and lands, right? All over Africa, where the Jews are, where the maps say the Jews live, where the maps state in Lamb were the Jews. We gotta go by the preponderance of the evidence. Not just what I'm showing you today, but everything we have learned, all of the history we've gone over, all the things we've shown you about the Jews in Africa. So we got a Jordan River as well. So here's another one. Now, I probably should have showed you the scripture first, but I'm going to show it to you after. So Mamrie is in Western Cape, South Africa. Mamrie is a small rural town in the Western Cape province of South Africa. It is situated on the northernmost border of the city of Cape Town Metropolitan Municipality. It is situated approximately 55 kilometers north of central Cape Town. and 5 to 6 kilometers to the neighboring industrial town of Atlantis. So, just a coincidence that it's named Mamrie, but what does that even mean? What does that even mean? Genesis 13:18. Then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, who's a Canaanite, brother of Eshol and brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abraham. We know that Canaanites are what? Black folks, because they descendants of Ham, right? Where did Abraham remove his tent to? Mamre. Is there a Mamre in South Africa? Yes. Oh, just another coincidence. Biblical names in Africa. The Jews were located in Africa. The black Jews were located in Africa. The black Jews who lived in Europe were what? Sent to Sao Tome in Africa, sent to Angola, sent to the Congo. But our people were always there. The kingdom of the Jews or the Judah on the maps were in Africa. I'm trying to show you that's our land. That is the promised land. The land with milk and honey, with the rivers and the streams, with the copper and the iron, the metals, with the food where you will want nothing. What do we need from the world? See, if we didn't have these people in Africa, who were selling out our people, Africa would already be the richest continent and the most powerful continent in the world if we didn't have these sellouts running these nations in Africa. Because Africa don't need anything from anybody. They just don't take the resources they have and manufacture the goods that they need or manufacture the goods that the world needs. That is the promised land. Oh, but it's just a coincidence. Okay, let's continue. Just a bunch of coincidences. So let's look at another coincidence, family. Another coincidence. We're going to look at another one. Okay. There's a location in South Africa called Hebron. Oh, but once again, that happened because the colonizers came and they renamed everything after biblical places. Oh, really? So okay. So even Mamre, they did that. They decided to name a location Mamre. They decided to name a place in Zimbabwe, after the Edomite, Zaire. They decided to name a nation Mali after one of the Levitical priests. There's a point in time where, I'm not going to buy it. Okay, you believe what you want. So that's Hebron. Oh, we got more. Let's continue. See, we got to build on the preponderance of evidence. Like I said, I'm not even going through what Truth has in his videos. You all need to go hit it up, start from scratch, look at it. He got a lot of good info in there. Okay. So another coincidence. Here's another coincidence, family. There's an area in Africa called Gaza. Oh my goodness. The Gaza province is in the southern Mozambique and featured here in Zaire and borders of South Africa to the west. There's extensive cereal and rice cultivation here in Zaire. Is the capital of the province. Oh, what? Wait. Why is there a Gaza? Oh, once again, they decided to name it after biblical territories, right? That's what you wanted to believe. In the same territory that the Jews were living. All 12 tribes. That's why y'all couldn't find them, because they were living in their own home, their own area, their own land. It's sort of like when you go to Saudi Arabia and you watch the videos and the television shows, and there's near black person in Saudi Arabia, but you go to Saudi Arabia, there's a whole bunch of black dark folks in Saudi Arabia. Come on now, we know y'all been hiding stuff. I'm just saying, family, build upon a preponderance of evidence. If this ain't enough for you, I'm gonna continue, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna give you the coup de grace at the end. I'm gonna give you the coup de grace at the end with sold meat. Okay, I'm gonna give you the coup de grace. So we're not at the coup de grace yet, but we're gonna get there. We're almost there. Okay, so I got a few more things I want to show you here. Then we're gonna get to the coup de grace. Okay. So not only do we have all those locations, you know what? We happen to have a Nazareth as well in Africa. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Why would they want to name all these territories in Africa after biblical names? Nazareth in the region of Moyen or Goy is a town located in Gabon, some 87 miles southeast of Libreville. Okay, so just another coincidence. Just another coincidence. We got a Nazareth too. Oh my goodness. Come on now. We got a Mamrie as well. Come on now. We got a Hebron. Come on now. When does the coincidences stop? When do they stop? What else we got? What else we got? You know what else we got in Africa? Oh my goodness. What else we got in Africa? We have a Jericho. Jericho, also known as Mtope a Sarinsana, is a village in Bojanala Platinum District in the northwest province of South Africa. Oh, well, Teo, that's just a coincidence. How many coincidences do we have? So we have a Jordan River, we have a Hebron, we have a Gaza, we have a Jericho, we have a Jerusalem. And look, family, I'm not going to even show you the location of Jerusalem today, okay? Truth Unveiled does that in his video. Go watch it. He'll show you the location of Jerusalem in South Africa, which is in the territory of Namibia and South Africa. And, well, at least on the borders of Namibia, South Africa, and Botswana. I'm just saying, I don't believe in coincidence. I'm going to show you one more thing, and then I'm going to show you the coup de grace. At least when I say coup de grace, I mean what sold me. I'm going to show you what sold me. When it goes beyond coincidence. Okay? So this is something else I want to show you. So in 1 Samuel chapter 23, verse 29, and David went up from thence and dwelt in strongholds at En-gedi. So I'm going to show you another coincidence. And maybe all of this is coincidence. Maybe it is. I don't believe in coincidence. This is the ruins of En-gedi in Kenya. The ruins of Gedi are a historical archaeological site near the Indian Ocean coast of eastern Kenya. The site is adjacent to the town of Gedi in the Kilifi district and within the Arabuko Sokoke forest. You can go look into that yourself. We got another coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. All right, so finally, we're going to get to what sold me on it. Now, you can get this from Truth's video. Okay. So you see this map here, family? It's called the DeVirga Map. And I'm going to show you at the top. See that information right there. Now, Truth has a link on the video that I shared with you if you want to go look at this map. Okay. All right. So you can see the date is 1411 to 1415. This is before any colonizers got there, right? I mean, the before the Portuguese, well, around the time I guess the Portuguese were arriving there, right? But during the time of when the Germans and all of these ones, the Berlin Conference, this is way before the Berlin Conference. Okay, so what I want to show you is this map. So let me go back and show you the map again. Okay, you see this map here, family. You see Africa right here, right? And you see down at the bottom at the foot of Africa, in the south part of Africa, you see this little circle here. What does that circle represent? You see that little purple circle? What does that represent? I'm gonna show you what it means, or at least what they say it is. Okay. Here, it says, the Garden of Eden is depicted at the southernmost tip of Africa with the symbol of the two concentric rings from which emerged the 4 rivers mentioned in Genesis. The delineation of Africa is unusual given that most European medieval world maps show southern Africa as extending strongly eastward, or as with those based on Ptolemy, showing an enclosed Indian Ocean. So this DeVirga map shows the Garden of Eden, right? Garden of Eden. You see the concentric circles. It shows the Garden of Eden where? In South Africa. Now, Jubilees state what? Jubilees state that where the Garden of Eden is where the Holy of Holies is. That's what Jubilees state. Where the garden is where the Holy of Holies is. So if Jubilees is correct, and this map is correct, then and the Garden of Eden is in South Africa, and the Holy of Holies is where the garden is. Let me make this bigger for your family so you can see it. So if this is the location, of the Garden of Eden, and Jubilee state the Garden of Eden is where the Holy of Holies is, then that's where Jerusalem is, because we know the Holy of Holies is in Jerusalem. Yes or no? Yes or no? And as I mentioned, I'm not showing you one of the most important things, because I want you to go watch Truth's video where he shows you the location of Jerusalem in South Africa. Like I said, look at the preponderance of the evidence, and I'm going to summarize. Now, so we had the Garden of Eden here, right? Jubilee said the Garden of Eden where the Holy of Holies is. This is in Africa. It's in South Africa. Go look at the video that Truth has. He'll show you where Jerusalem is, which is in South Africa, near the Kalahari Desert. And let me show you. So between this map and what I'm about to show you next was it for me. I say I'm sold. I might not have 100%, but I'm sold. I got enough of the preponderance of the evidence to believe Jerusalem is in South Africa. Oh, but what about the issue of the Dead Sea, the South Sea and all this stuff? That's something you deal with later. It's sort of like when you're learning or you're when you're dealing with evidence, like I would say with the preponderance of the evidence. Okay, I got 90% of the stuff that says he did it. But there's this 1%, there's this 10% over here that says maybe somebody else did it. But you know what? I'm going to convict you off that 90% because that's enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt for me to say you did it. So this is enough evidence for me to say, yes, this is where Jerusalem is. It's enough evidence to say this is where our home is and where we're going back to. So let me show you this one thing. And just to re-emphasize, a lot of this is in Truth's video. Right. Some of the stuff I have wasn't in his video, but this here is in his video, and what I'm about to share with you is in his video. Okay, so this is called Madomel. Madomel. That is just so hard for me to pronounce. Formerly Nowstrom. Now, Truth covers this in his video. It is a town located near the southern edge of the Waterberg Massif in Limpopo province, South Africa. It is a medium-sized town that focuses primarily on agriculture, farming, citrus, grapes, and cattle, as well as wildlife tourism. Madomel is also located approximately 135 kilometers north of Pretoria, South Africa's capital city. So look at this history here. It says, in the 1860s, a group of Boer trekkers known as Jerusalem trekkers, the Boer trekkers, known as what? Jerusalem trekkers, set off for the Holy Land. They set off for the Holy Land. After discovering a wide river flowing northwards, they consulted the maps at the back of their Bibles and decided that it was the Nile River. They called the stream Nile River and settled the town and called it Nowstrom in 1866. After discovering what they believed to be a ruined pyramid, they were convinced that they had found the Nile. It was, in fact, a natural hill lock known to the locals at Madomel. So, here's the question. So we have a map from 1411 that shows the Holy of Holies, or the Garden of Eden in South Africa. These guys are in South Africa looking for Jerusalem. They're called the Jerusalem trekkers or the Boer trekkers, looking for the Holy Land. Where? In South Africa. Why were they looking for the Holy Land? Why were they looking for Jerusalem? Because they're the Jerusalem trekkers looking for the Holy Land. Why were they looking for it in South Africa? Why weren't they looking for the Holy Land in the Middle East? Somebody's not telling the whole truth. All I'm saying is, I think there's enough evidence to say Jerusalem is in South Africa, regardless of any issues you may have with the location of the Dead Sea. Now, one of the other issues that I had initially with the location was the Red Sea. So I was like, well, how did they cross? They crossed the Red Sea. So, how does that work? But I showed you all in another teaching that I did where that particular scripture calls it the Sea of Reeds. There's no color red. There's nothing that identifies it as a Red Sea or whatever they used to call that waterway. So it was called the Sea of Reeds. The Nile was known as the Sea of Reeds, or as, is where Moses was put into the Nile in a reed basket. Because why? Because they have reeds. So I believe what they did was just swap it out. They called, just like they called the Hedekale Tigris, which don't seem to be, at least as far as I can see, a valid reason for calling it the Tigris, because it means rapid. I don't think there was a reason for them to call that the Red Sea. I believe that those chariots that were consumed by the water were consumed when the Jews were crossing the Nile River, which is why our people exist and live in Africa. They live in the Congo. They live in Kenya. They live in Ghana. They live in Mali. They live in Benin. They live in West Africa. This is our land. This is the promised land flowing with milk and honey, with the deep streams and the brooks and the rivers and the gushing waters and the cattle where you will need nothing. Does Africa need anything from anybody? If she was not colonized, will she need a single thing from anybody? No. So once again, and I'm a summit. So we got places named after the Bible: Hebron, Gaza, Nazareth, Mamrie, Jordan River, Hebron. We got Jerusalem there, even though I didn't show it. I'm like, come on. We got Zaire. I think beyond a reasonable doubt, I proved, or at least let's say truth proved. I'm just emphasizing and validating his work. We've been lied to. Think of this, like I was saying in the beginning. You got a group of people who hid a nation of people from the world, who the scripture says they're going to cause the remembrance of us to cease from among men, which is what they did. Now we are awakening and saying we're the people. Now you got quote unquote Ashkenazi Jews admitting we're the people, but they're trying to include themselves. So you can't accuse us of taking somebody's identity when the people who say they are the people are admitting that we are the people. We have been in that land forever, and we stayed in that land because that's our home, which is why our people are still there. Why did the fake Jews want to go in and take over Uganda and Kenya? If you don't know about that, go do your research. Why did they want to do that? But they ended up in the Middle East. Why? Because they couldn't let it fly that they're the true Jews when you're surrounded by a nation full of black folks. That wasn't going to fly. You can't say you the Jews and you surrounded by a bunch of black people. So, family, I think I proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Jerusalem is in South Africa. I guess we're going to find out once our exodus occurs, which I believe is going to be pretty soon. I'm still seeing all the signs. Very interesting what happened in Lebanon today. I don't know what happened. Many nukes, some people saying, I don't know. I don't know what happened. The first thing I thought it was Israel. I don't know what happened. But if we find out that somebody bombed Lebanon, it's going to be on. It's going to be on. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending.